That's something for our government to answer, I think. It's clear the Biden administration's China virus mandates are not about science. It's all about power. Joining me now is Kansas Senator Dr. Roger Marshall. Mr. Marshall, thank you for being here on the Salcedo Show. The Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals is upholding their block of Biden's vaccine mandate. This is one of many legal challenges this mandate is facing now. You signed on to an effort to overturn the ruling, and you pledged not to vote for any government funding until this whole thing is nullified. What is your sense of the Senate? Is every Republican on board in opposing Biden's unconstitutional moves here?
I think that they're all on board stopping this unconstitutional mandate. And like the court said there, they're treating this problem with a sledgehammer, and that the Biden law is fatally flawed. That was their language, not mine. So I think that we all realize that this is an unconstitutional overreach. This is a slap in the face of people that were heroes. Now we're calling them zeros. This is a slap in the face of the people that ran to the sound of the battle, the nurses, the doctors, the police officers, the ambulance people that ran when there was problems. They ran to that virus and took risk on themselves. Now they're immune to it. And now they're being told they have to quit their job. It's un-American. These are real people with real jobs. And what our amendment will do is it'll stop any type of federal dollars from being used for the unlawful Biden mandate.
Now, what do you think about left-wingers across this country, like, for example, out in California? The pretty boy governor out there is mandating that children get vaccinated ages 5 to 11 if they want to go to school. And as you just heard from Dr. Benjamin Carson there, the statistics don't meet that push. In other words, they're not following the science. There's something else at play here. And shouldn't vaccines be only science-driven, Senator?
You're right. This is another example of using a sledgehammer to try to solve a problem. One size doesn't fit all. That's why we value the sanctity of a doctor-patient relationship. Dr. Benjamin Ben is right. You know, he's nailed this once again. Dr. Carson did. That one size doesn't fit all. Look, my parents have had the vaccine. They've had the booster now. They have a different risk profile than my grandchildren do. So I think we have to always weigh the benefits and the risk of any type of treatment we're prescribing versus the potential complications or problems from the virus. And I think that that's going to have to be a decision between patients and their doctor, right? And I would just warn this government, don't poke Mama Bear. If the federal government tries to get between a mama and her kids, I think that they're really asking for trouble and really would side with the parents' right to sit down and have this discussion with their doctor and ask them whether they think that their child should have the vaccine or not. You know, if they have an underlying cancer they're being treated for, maybe they should get the vaccine. Or if they're obese, maybe they should get the vaccine. But an otherwise healthy child, I think we have to sit there and agree with Dr. Carson and say, what are the risks of this virus? Well, it's less than the common flu. Then why are we mandating a vaccine? We don't mandate a vaccine for the common flu. Why are we doing one for this virus?
Yeah, you know, I remember the good old days, Senator, when health officials in the federal government, when responsible government was with us, they would say, consult your medical physician, you know, your family doctor before making these types of decisions. They don't do that anymore. They're in the mandating business now. We don't have responsible government. Here's Biden advisor Brian Deese telling George Stephanopoulos that we can't address runaway inflation until we address the China virus. Listen.
So what can Americans expect in the short term? Is inflation going to get worse before it gets better? Is there anything President Biden can do in the short term?
We're focused on how to address this in the short term and the medium term, George. In the short term, number one, we have to finish the job on COVID. Getting those shots out for 5 to 11-year-olds is going to provide a lot of comfort to American families.
Senator, what does one have to do with the other? Will forcing 5-year-olds to take this vaccine fix Biden's failing economy?
Yeah, Chris, this is how ass backwards this White House thinks, right? Can you think of anything more bizarre to say, right? Actually, the opposite is going to happen. The Biden vaccine mandates are going to drive up inflation. 20-30% of workers out there are going to quit their jobs over this vaccine mandate, exacerbated an already critical labor shortage situation that's going to cause more supply chain problems and thus more inflation. I don't get at all where they're going with on this. And by the way, unless they start acknowledging natural immunity, no one's going to respect the CDC or respect the White House. So no, this is, again, just how ridiculous this White House thinks through problems. You would think that they want inflation. They're acting like they want inflation.
Yeah, it sounds like it to me. One of the talking heads over there at MSNBS, Stephanie Ruhle, is taking fire for suggesting that Americans shouldn't be complaining about the higher cost of food out there. Residential heating costs, as you know, are expected to surge at least 30% across the board here. And Biden claims he can't address skyrocketing energy prices at home or at the pump. But you beg to differ. You put out a list here recently. You want to give him a little bit of a primer since this administration seems clueless on how to do it?
Yeah, right. So inflation is, of course, a social injustice. And the greatest example is the price of gasoline at the pump. If you think about the policies this White House has implemented from day one, shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, we're now importing more oil from Russia than from Alaska. They've shut down drilling on federal grounds. And here's the one that's no one talking about, and that's financing of oil and gas operations. So because of ESG regulations, banks are now afraid to loan money to the oil and gas industry as well. So again, go back to basic supply and demand. We're going to be lowering the supply of oil and therefore driving up the cost of gasoline. This is not rocket science, but what your listeners need to know, they want the price of gasoline to go up. They want this crisis. They can never drive the cost of operating an electric car down to the price of operating a gasoline-powered car. So they want to drive the cost of gasoline up and then use this for their Green New Deal socialistic plans as well. So this is another crisis created by the president. They know how to solve it, but they don't want to.
Senator Roger Marshall, appreciate the visit, sir, as always here on the Salcedo Show. We'll talk again soon.